Coming up on Tech News Today, T-Mobile frees up international roaming a little. Twitter might have a secret news service, and HP is going to bite the hand that has fed it for so many years. It's so ungrateful. Find out why next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, October 10th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and easy way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we take in the tech news, all of it, every single ounce, every little bit of it, and then serve for you only the best and finest choice cuts, starting with the top 10 stories of the day in the news fuse. T-Mobile USA announced new international data plans yesterday in a New York event that somehow involves Shakira. Under the new plan, T-Mobile users on the current Simple Choice plan pay no extra fees for international 2G data and texts in more than 100 countries starting October 31st. Voice calls will cost 20 cents a minute. However, if you want high-speed data, also known as something that will do more than download my email, you'll need a speed pass. $15 will get you 100 megabytes for a day overseas, $25 for 200 megabytes for a week overseas, or $50 for 500 megabytes for 2 weeks overseas. T-Mobile also introduced an international calling plan, allowing calls and texts from the United States to more than 100 countries for $10 a month and 20 cents a minute.
Fitbit's on the scene with a new smartwatch fitness band hybrid. It's called the Fitbit Force. It's $129.95. It's a bracelet that has a small OLED screen right on the band so you can tell the time and how many steps you've taken, how many miles you've walked, that sort of thing. Like Fitbit's Flex bracelet and its Zip and One trackers, the device will track all of the activity that you're doing throughout the day, calories you've burned, but updates the companion app with data via Bluetooth. However, the app can also update the band itself with information like not just the time, but incoming call notifications as well. So more smartwatch than ever.
Snazzy. TechCrunch reports that Twitter is testing a new service that will send direct messages to users. The test is occurring through an experimental account called Event Parrot. Get it? Twitter Parrot. Its description says to follow it to receive direct messages that will help you keep up with what's happening in the world.
Bloomberg reports BlackBerry is more open to breaking up the company into parts for sale amid fears that Fairfax Financial won't be able to raise the $4.7 billion it promised to bid to buy the company. Last week, BlackBerry approached several companies. We talked about this, including SAP, Cisco, and Samsung. They're trying to gauge interest in who might want to purchase parts of the company. Meanwhile, in good BlackBerry news, Rogers Communications in Canada has changed its mind and decided to carry the BlackBerry Z30, as they call it in Canada, after customers complained about their decision not to carry it.
Dion Weisler, Executive Vice President of Printing and Personal Systems at HP, said at the company's security analyst meeting yesterday that indeed the PC market is shrinking and that the push into non-Windows markets is being driven by places like China. He said, quote, "In China, there are more tablets sold than in the United States. Guess what? Most of those are not on the Windows operating system." HP is focused on 4 OSs now: Microsoft, Android, Chrome, and Ubuntu.
Aereo says its Android app is coming on October 22nd. However, the app will only be available in areas where Aereo operates. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, at the U.S. District Court for District of Massachusetts, Aereo has won a case against broadcaster Hearst. Now, Hearst had sued Aereo, claiming Aereo was rebroadcasting its Channel 5 signal without permission, and that would be copyright infringement. U.S. District Judge Nathaniel Gorton said Aereo did not violate copyright because Aereo's service is like a remote DVR.
It's so like that. Acer launched its C720 Chromebook line on Thursday in the United States. The 2.76-pound laptop has an 11.6-inch 1366 by 768 screen, 4 gigabytes of DD3R RAM, and a 16-gigabyte SSD hard drive, as well as an Intel Haswell processor. The C720-800 will sell for $250 and is available for pre-order on Amazon and Best Buy, though they're not saying when it's shipping yet, oddly.
Bloomberg Business Week has published some very choice excerpts from writer Brad Stone's upcoming book, The Everything Store, Jeff Bezos and the Age of Amazon. Topics include the beginnings of the company to Bezos' personal life, the inner workings of Amazon, even the leadership group, which is known as the S-Team. So Stone describes Amazon as less than harmonious, though, and that, quote, the people who do well at Amazon are often those who thrive in an adversarial atmosphere with almost constant friction. He also writes, quote, Bezos abhors what he calls social cohesion, the natural impulse to seek consensus. Meow.
Wow. Remind me not to work for him.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, instant correction. I think I said DDR3R RAM by mistake. It was slip of the tongue. Acer's C720 has DDR3L RAM, 4 gigabytes of it.
Good catch.
Thank you.
That would have been embarrassing.
Woo! Las Vegas is the latest city to be promised 1 gigabit per second internet service, and it's not from Google. CenturyLink, which has a 1 gig pilot service in Omaha, Nebraska, will begin offering fiber to the premises in residential and small business areas in select neighborhoods of Las Vegas soon, hopefully by the end of the fall. The service starts at $80 per month and on a 12-month contract, or $125 a month if you add their TV service and sign a 6-month contract.
According to Hong Kong's Oriental Daily, engineering students from the Xi'an Institute of Technology may have been forced into an internship program at Foxconn where they would assemble PlayStation 4 units. XIT students were told to join the program or they wouldn't receive credits necessary to graduate. Foxconn investigated and found students who were assigned to night shifts and overtime were placed there in violation of Foxconn's policies.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle. The new iPhone is here, and Gazelle wants to buy your used iPhone. Gazelle makes selling your used gadgets fast and simple. That's why I've been using it. I don't have to think about it. I know I'm going to get paid. I'm going to get paid fast, and they give you 30 days to get your gadget to them. Go to Gazelle.com. It's Gazelle.com. Find your item. Tell Gazelle the condition. They'll even buy broken iPhones and iPads and get a risk-free offer for your gadget and free shipping. Then you'll get paid fast by check, PayPal, or an extra 5% with an Amazon gift card. Ayaz already put his iPad up there for that 30-day risk-free offer just in case that new iPad dazzles him if it comes out, if it's announced October 22nd, which we think it will be. Anyway, find out what your iPhone is worth. Take a minute, go to Gazelle.com, find out. Do it now because your iPhone may lose value the longer you wait. And we thank Gazelle for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to comment on the stories of the day around the old table, Eric Olander, VP of FBNC in Vietnam. And thank you for staying up late for us, Eric. Or is it getting up early?
It's staying up late and great to be back on the show.
Thanks, man. It's good to have you. Let's start off talking with international roaming charges. Ayaz, we heard the stats going on with T-Mobile, but what else do we know?
This is their version 3.0 or their phase 3.0 of the Un-carrier campaign from T-Mobile. Phase 1 was no more long-term contracts. Phase 2 was that jump program where you can switch phones, and this is Phase 3 with a lot of global calling. T-Mobile is going to eliminate fees for data and text messages entirely in more than 100 countries starting October 31st. Calling rates are going to be simplified. T-Mobile's charging a flat 20 cents per minute. And who's eligible, though? You got to either be a new and existing T-Mobile customer who's on a postpaid plan, so that's like the not contract, but not prepaid, are eligible for the new international plan. There's also a $10 stateside international talk and text plan for U.S. customers calling to other countries. That plan includes calls for 20 cents as well a minute, free unlimited calls to landlines in 70 of those countries. And of course, T-Mobile CEO John Legere put an example together. He says if a customer uses 72 megabytes of data, makes 32 one-minute calls back home, and sends 36 text messages a day on AT&T without an international plan, the cost would be $1,150 if that person was in Canada. Now, on T-Mobile, that would cost $6.40. Laptop also has a great chart showing off all the various costs per minute. On AT&T, it's $2 per minute for voice calls for international. Sprint about $6. Verizon 6 cents a minute with certain plans. The data speeds, like you mentioned, Tom, are not really fast. The average speed is 128 kilobits per second if you want to have this international data, but you could pay a little extra to get faster speeds. Eric, do you think this latest move is going to get this latest move by T-Mobile? Is it going to get the other U.S. carriers to follow suit, or is this just T-Mobile being the uncarrier?
Well, it's hard to tell, in part because everybody thought when he did the uncarrier thing last year by, not having any contracts, that would force the others to move, and it didn't do anything to Verizon or AT&T. But, I think this is a real play for the corporate market. For those of us who do travel overseas, it's the biggest pain in the ass to have to kind of swap SIM cards, to have to think about rate plans and whatnot. And I think there's two things that are going on here. One, that T-Mobile's trying to differentiate from the competition. But the other part of this, and I think this is what might force the other carriers to move, is that this is really the pressure from the OTT. This is basically a Skype call plan that they've got going on here. And at some point, the other carriers are going to have to kind of break, because more and more people are turning to Skype and turning to other kind of forms of connectivity to make their calls and their data transfers.
500 megabytes over 2 weeks is nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
with the faster speeds. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you're going to blow through that really quick.
Right.
500 megabytes of data.
Compare that to AT&T, which you have to call them or go to the website and add the monthly international plan. You get 120 megabytes for $30 over the entire month. And then you have to remember to call back and cancel it, or go to the website and cancel it. But don't cancel it too quickly, because they prorate it over the month. This may not be a lot of megabytes to add for the high-speed service, but it's certainly a lot simpler and a lot easier to understand.
It definitely is more attractive financially, but it still doesn't make a lot of sense to me if you can swap out your SIM not to just do that.
See, I would think this is for shorter-term plans. So if you're going to be out for a week or two, it's not such a bad deal. But if you're going to be out there for like a month or 3 months, maybe then you start looking at switching out SIMs. But it seems like it would make it very convenient to be able to travel internationally and use these phones without having to do all the rigmarole of calling your carrier and doing these things. And as Eric's mentioning, this is a lot of the calling rates should be really low, because if you use something like Skype out, that's dirt cheap. Why T-Mobile's like the only company thinking, hey, wait a second, we could charge really make ourselves look really good by having a low rate for these international calls. It might make them look more attractive. I still think the biggest drawback for T-Mobile is their coverage. And if they have good enough partnerships around the world, yeah, there's still good coverage. But it's not the same in the U.S. because Verizon and AT&T have it blanketed.
Yeah, but think about one other thing here, is that this is probably going to be very popular in the immigrant communities in the U.S., which are really, really big. T-Mobile took over Metro PCS, which, of course, catered to a lower-end customer. But a lot of that growth may actually come from new customers who are going back and forth to Latin America and to Asia and whatnot, and calling friends. So I would look for growth in the immigrant market.
Yeah, and I think T-Mobile's Sarah makes a good point. Like if I go to Canada and I, get a SIM card, that's certainly the best buy. But if I'm just not wanting to stand in that line and I've got T-Mobile, I may limp along with 2G for a while because I don't have to do anything. Whereas with AT&T, I got to go through that whole rigmarole. So that makes standing in line or going to the shop and grabbing a SIM card that much easier to do. And you don't have to swap a SIM card. I don't know. I think
swapping a SIM card is not that hard. And
you're right.
Almost without question, local rates make a lot more sense than trying to deal with your carrier.
It's definitely the best buy. You're absolutely right about that. Let's talk about HP. They had their financial analyst meeting Wednesday in the face of some pretty bad PC sales news. IDC Worldwide says PC shipments shrunk 7.6%. in the third quarter. Gartner's numbers say 8.6%. They're both bad news. Dion Weisler, Executive Vice President of Printing and Personal Systems, said, "We're in a new world now with multiple operating systems, new architectures, new silicon, new graphics, and new subsystems," and said HP's focused on 4 OSs. We mentioned that in the news fuse: Microsoft, Android, Chrome, and Ubuntu. Meg Whitman went farther and said, Wintel-based devices are being aggressively displaced by ARM-based PCs and mobile devices running competing operating systems. Current long-term HP partners like Intel and Microsoft are increasingly becoming outright competitors. And Gartner estimates 2 million Chromebooks will sell this year, but that will rise to 12 million by 2016. Now, Weisler also outlined a way that they're going to go head-to-head with Lenovo. They want to get that market share back and stop Lenovo from essentially tying them in the worldwide PC market. Eric, Google is working with multiple manufacturers, Samsung, Acer, now HP, on Chromebooks. Microsoft is the only manufacturer for their ARM tablets, the Windows RT tablets. Is Microsoft becoming Apple with Google becoming Microsoft, or maybe it's Microsoft is becoming IBM with OS 2? What do you think is going on here?
I think you're being very generous to compare Microsoft to Apple. I think Microsoft's probably going down the road of RIM here. More than it's going down the Apple road, because the value proposition for somebody for the consumer to spend the extra money to buy a Microsoft operating system just doesn't make sense anymore when most of the functionality you can get for the average user on the Chromebooks. And now the other part of it too is that as the Android operating system begins to merge between the mobile and the Chromebook, one can possibly see a lot more synergies there that you just simply can't get on a Microsoft product. So I really just think that this is part of an irreversible trend of PC decline.
We're definitely seeing tablets becoming the new wave, right? HP is talking all about tablets. They're going to grow tablet unit share from 2% of the market in the enterprise. They're pitching features like hardened operating systems and security. They want to become that overseas dominance that Lenovo has started to take from the other side of that.
But the key thing here, and this was what Sarah mentioned in her kind of talk about this, was China's driving this trend here. China's the largest PC market. China's the largest tablet market in the world. And Chinese demand is going to set the standard for the rest of the world to follow. That's something that's hard for Americans to sometimes understand, the fact that they are no longer actually controlling the market in terms of what gets put out there. And what we're seeing in places like China, here in Vietnam, is that people are finding that they don't need to buy a laptop anymore. The Slimbooks, by the way, have actually gotten a lot better. So there's a lot more functionality coming out of Slimbooks. So that's one area that I could see, the Ultra Slims actually showing some growth. But, the traditional, conventional Microsoft, Wintel PC just doesn't seem like it's gonna do well in places like China and here in Vietnam.
Yeah, looking at HP's consumer-facing, divisions, and not exactly something that's burning up the charts in the U.S. or around the world. I think their real future is in enterprise, sticking with those back-end services, catering to businesses, because they've been trying to do exciting tablets or try to do a smartphone, and we saw what happened with Palm there. They kind of destroyed that whole game. And they're talking about creating a smartphone. HP needs to really, if they want to have consumers' imagination, they have to do a lot of work. But to keep businesses interested in HP is relatively simple because they have a lot of inertia.
I think what is most worrisome about this, if I'm a Microsoft executive, is the fact that Windows and Microsoft Office are my cash cows. Those are the things I've never had to worry about. And I'm not saying they are having to worry about it right now, but this is a worrisome trend when some of your most loyal partners are out there saying, yeah, that's really not working for us. On the one hand saying ARM is dominant, and on the other hand saying, but we don't want to put any ARM processor-based devices out with Windows running on them, even though Microsoft offers that. They're starting to see Microsoft as a competitor. And that was what a lot of people were worried about when Microsoft decided to come out with the Surface. Well, this is one to keep an eye on for sure. Let's talk about Twitter and that new Event Parrot site that Aya's mentioned in the news fuse. Sarah?
Yeah, Event Parrot hasn't actually tweeted anything. The account is at Event Parrot. But the idea is that if there are not events like parties, but more like breaking news about stuff that's happening around the world, and you are following the Event Parrot account, you will then be able to receive DMs, because you have to follow an account in order for that. The account has to follow you. Anyway, you understand how DMs work. You'd receive DMs about stuff that's happening around the world that may be of interest to you. So it's sort of an algorithmic / personalized news type of a thing. Now, Twitter already has been working on another account that kind of works in the same way, called Magic Rex, as in Magic Recommendations. Magic Rex is the Twitter account. It was created by a team within Twitter. It kind of started as like a little bit of an experiment, which would send a DM alert to followers about popular users and their tweets. I followed Magic Rex for just a short period of time because I ended up getting DMs that they were recommending accounts that a lot of my friends were following, but maybe not for the same kind of reasons that I follow accounts. But it was very good for momentum. If there's a parody account that everybody sort of jumps on, you have a little bit more of a heads up if you're not able to really, really keep on top of your own news feed, for example. So it's this sort of like, it's almost sort of pushing in the background, hey, Sarah, this might be an interesting thing for you to pay attention to if for some reason you haven't already seen that organically in your own Twitter experience. Now, Twitter hasn't said, for the record, by the way, that Event Parrot is an internal project, but there are a lot of Twitter employees that are following the account, and there's kind of no reason to think that it's a fraud. It hasn't done anything weird so far. And Isaac Hepworth, who works at Twitter, who has an interesting job title of unusual products at Twitter, is also following the account. So, Eric, what do you think? Have you played around with either of these? Do you think that personalized recommendations make sense via DM?
DM to me is something that doesn't actually make an enormous amount of sense. What I'm interested in with Event Parrot is not something that I would get an alert from, say, a CNN breaking news, because I already get those from New York Times and the big brands. What's interesting is if we can get breaking news alerts sent to us from UGC, from kind of individual smaller stations like ours who can't afford to develop the breaking news alert systems, and people who want to follow us, they can get those. So if Event Parrot can evolve into something like that, that would actually be useful. Getting recommendations into my DM, doesn't really excite me that much.
Well, yeah, Twitter their DM system just doesn't work very well. It's almost like it's hidden, like they don't really want people to use it anymore. So it would be odd if this turns out to be an official Twitter thing, if that was the method they stuck with. I kind of feel like they're doing it as a DM because that's a nice test. And maybe when they're ready to come out and say, oh, it was us this whole time, then they would create a way for it to show up in your main feed or on the main page that's a little more useful.
Well, the Magic Rex account started out as just a little, a little experiment. And part of this makes me wonder if this is a way for the company to not just internally test a way to push personalized content at people, but to possibly also push advertising at people that is somehow more personalized than something that's some sort of promoted tweet or something that a company paid for that would hang out at the top of your stream. A little bit like email advertising or email spam, because when I see a DM, I'm like, ooh, somebody just wrote me something that's just for me. I'm kind of excited about it. It feels like it's more special than, an at reply type of a thing. So
it seems like they'd be really playing with fire if that's what their idea is, because people hate getting SMS spam. People hate getting, one of the best practices in Twitter is never to put an auto DM after you get a follower. And I just feel like it's coming up really close to that kind of behavior.
It's definitely a line to make sure they don't cross. But the thing is, if it actually is things that you really care about, let's say I'm following Amazon Gold Box, and I am, or a bunch of these Woot sites or whatever. If I find something in a DM from Event Parrot that says, hey, maybe the thing you're looking at here, it can be bought at this other place for a lower cost, maybe that would be the right way to do advertising if you're going to be able to do that at all in your DMs. Or maybe even have options where you can say, I don't want to see offers in this. But the DM, like you're saying, Sarah, it gets you excited. You're like, oh, I got something here. This is something excited. And you're going to pay more attention to it. Just like when Gmail added their promotions tab, seeing these email style ads made people pay attention to them more. You're in a different mindset when it comes to this. And that means a lot more engagement. So Twitter's got to be really careful whether they're going to put ads in this, because you don't want to get burned where nobody looks at DMs anymore. You want to make sure that's still a viable communication method. But ads could be good if they do it right.
Yeah, Twitter has definitely de-emphasized DMs. Tom, I agree with you there, especially with every time they seem to update at least the web version of Twitter, it gets harder to find your DMs. But we know that the company is experimenting with sending us what they hope is valuable information via DM. So I have to take it seriously that they're going to try to figure out how to use that part of Twitter more down the road.
All right, Dropcam's got a new device out. The new Dropcam Pro has an all-glass lens, means a sharper picture, 130-degree field of view. We'll get to what that means, as well as the 8x zoom that allows. Better low-light vision at $199. You can zoom in and enhance and see the picture as you're looking at it. Now, this is in response to a lot of people saying, we want motors, we want gears, and Dropcam saying, well, what you really want is to be able to see more stuff. So let's do that without adding a lot of complexity. It also is in beta for learning motion. So instead of sending you a motion alert because the dog walked by or the tree is blowing in the wind out the window, it will start to learn like those are regular motions and only alert you with motions that are a little weirder. Joining us now to discuss the Dropcam, we're actually happy to have CEO of the company, Greg Duffy, on the line with us. How's it going, Greg? Thanks for joining us, man.
It's going great. Always happy to be on Twit, and I hope Dropcam is a great epic beard camera for you guys over there.
Thanks a lot. Now, we love using Dropcam at Twit. If people haven't checked it out, go to twit.tv and check out the Dropcam section. You can see the entire studio and what people are doing. That's how I know when our meetings are starting, actually. I keep an eye on the Dropcam. But there's lots of cool stuff to talk about, and I know you probably want to talk about the specs and the enhanced viewing and the zooming, but I think the thing that's most interesting, and we only have a few minutes to talk, is the Bluetooth LE. The fact that you've positioned this to become part of a wider home network, part of the Internet of Things, as well as having an API. Tell us a little bit about where you think Dropcam could go in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you guys know, Dropcam's always been about the cloud service and kind of delivering ease of use for this home monitoring use case. And I think this is really an extension of that idea. We want you to be able to not only see what's going on at home, but also sense and maybe eventually even control. And Bluetooth LE is a really logical choice for a hub inside of Dropcam. Your camera's always on. You have it for monitoring. It's using lots of bandwidth, so it needs Wi-Fi. It needs power. And we compress the video. We do all this kind of complicated stuff. It's a pretty easy kind of extension to say, why don't we also let sensors use Dropcam as a hub? And in fact, the same types of sensors that are going to be able to talk to your iPod, your iPhone, all of the Apple devices, and now Android with 4.3 will be supporting Bluetooth LE as well. So we don't have to recreate a whole ecosystem of sensors. We can kind of ride the mobile train into the connected home, which I think is really cool.
Now, I know you've opened up an API probably with the hope that people will come up with things that you never would have thought of. But what are some of the things that you might expect or you're hoping people will come up with to take advantage of that?
Well, I think the security use case is particularly interesting. People use Dropcam to see what's going on with their families, with their pets, with what's going on at home. And so anything where we can help you figure out what's going on, like sensors that tell you when a door opens, or any other kind of thing that you would never want to plug into a wall, you would never want to have to worry about wiring something like that. But slapping a little Bluetooth LE sensor on the wall, suddenly you get more information about what's going on at home. I think that's a really good use case. And paired with Dropcam Pro, you're going to get amazing video along with that. So one of the most disappointing experiences I ever had with connected home was, about 15 years ago, I could turn on and off my lights at home with my phone, but I couldn't see it happening. And it's kind of like, that old adage, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it. So with Dropcam, you can use it as the hub of the connected home, see what's going on as you're controlling and sensing what's happening there.
Hey, Greg, what interested me most is about the cloud storage that you've got there. And I guess, there's a lot of concern now about security in the cloud, particularly as it relates to law enforcement and even, let's say, the NSA and whatnot. Talk to us a little bit about what you're doing in terms of your EULA and the security aspect of it. That could my whole life all of a sudden be opened up to, to a search warrant?
Well, we do a bunch of things to help with privacy at Dropcam. And it actually starts with helping you control when the camera is recording in the first place. A lot of products either don't give you control over that or make you kind of manually decide when it's recording or not. We added a couple of features, scheduling and location awareness to Dropcam just a few months ago that allows you to actually set up Dropcam to only record when you're not there. So a lot of times that cancels out any of the video you would consider to be, private in the first place. Not only that, though, but we go to great lengths to encrypt the video to keep it from being snooped on. There are a lot of, video baby monitors in the press that didn't put that effort into security and cryptography that we did when we first started the company, and it makes it easy to snoop on those cameras, over insecure Wi-Fi networks where Dropcam doesn't really have that problem. We use SSL for every bit of video that comes from the camera. When it comes to government requests, the easy answer is that we've never had a request for something like that. I think that video is going to be, in control of what's recorded is in control of the users. You can delete your Dropcam video at any time, and it's permanently deleted, and control in the first place what was recorded. So we think that's kind of the perfect pairing with the cloud storage to help you make it safe and secure with control over what's recorded.
Greg, thanks for taking the time to chat with us today. It's $199 for the Dropcam Pro and $149 for the other Dropcam. These are available now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can get them on Dropcam.com and Amazon just for $199, and it's the best Dropcam yet.
Thanks a lot, Greg. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care. Got more devices to talk about now, Sarah Lane. The Fitbit Force. It's part smartwatch.
Yeah, I have this like inner struggle with myself every time there's a new story about a smartwatch / fitness tracker because there are just too many of them. But this one seems interesting, so I figured, we'd talk about it because it's not just a smartwatch and it's not just a fitness tracker. So I feel like, in a way, Fitbit almost has the best version of this whole smartwatch hybrid thing on the market right now. As we mentioned in the news fuse, it's $130. It's called the Fitbit Force. It's certainly not the first armband from Fitbit. In fact, Fitbit is really piling on the different models. But this is the first one that is actually pushing not just data from the device itself to an app that then is calculating all this data and giving you nice graphs over a period of time about how far you've walked and how many calories you burned and are you sleeping well and all that stuff. But then is also pushing from your device to your armband. So if Ayaz calls me, for example, I'll get a little notification on the OLED screen that that's happening. So there's going to be limited communication that can originate from the band itself. But it's not just a fitness device. And I think that that's actually really smart of Fitbit to say, sure, I mean, the quantitative self, that's one of the terms that people use to try to basically kind of get big data on all of our activities to get a broad view of, are we healthy? Are we exercising enough compared to other people in our peer groups, that sort of thing. But if you just do fitness, you're going to turn off all of the people who, for whatever reason, just are like, I don't care. I don't care how many steps I take. I'm not really that interested in working out or being that granular about all of the factors of working out, how many steps I took or what my elevation is, that sort of thing. So when the Force is paired with a phone running iOS 7, Android works a little bit differently. You see incoming call notifications right on the display. Now on an Android phone, you can tap the Force to the phone, so it's a little bit more of like a bump thing, and then it'll automatically launch the Fitbit app to then get stuff synced up. Eric, what do you think? I mean, Fitbit, it sounds like fitness, the name itself. Is it smart for them to kind of jump ahead and say we're fitness, but we're other stuff too?
Hey, Sarah, I got to agree with you. I'm much more excited about what I'm seeing coming out of Fitbit than, for example, the Samsung watch. The Samsung watch had a ton of functionality in it, consistent with what Samsung does, but people really like this health type of these health features. And I hope that Apple's taking note of this, because I think the price point of the Fitbit is good. I think the functionality is good. I think the design is also nice. It's an elegant design. I could see somebody wearing this. Whereas that Dick Tracy giant Samsung watch, just to me, isn't that appealing for a lot of reasons. So probably the battery life is going to be a big one. Tom, when the Samsung came out, you really wondered aloud about whether or not you're going to have to recharge Samsung, every 5 or 7 hours. And I think this is really, they're onto something here, I think.
Yeah, it gives you a purpose, right? I mean, that to me is the biggest problem with these smartwatches is, okay, notifications are interesting and being able to see stuff is a nice side benefit, but that's not the main reason I would wear it. I guess the main reason you wear it is to tell time, but I can do that with any watch. So give me something a little more than that, because we're not naturally a watch-wearing society as much as we used to be. This says, okay, we're going to give you the Fitbit in there, along with the time telling and the notifications. You're right. Suddenly this starts to look like something I might want.
Yeah, these fitness devices that are getting more and more functionalities kind of bring it closer to smartwatches, while smartwatches are still trying to figure out how to add more functionality so it's not just an accessory for your phone. I'm assuming that these fitness devices are going to be consumed at some point by smartwatches. I know Samsung has a bunch of S-Health features that should have been built into the Gear. Maybe the next version will have that to the point where it would be the one device that does the same kind of thing. I know LG had something very similar. It had the same kind of, it could pair up. It looked like the Fuel Band, and I don't think I got any press. I saw it I think on CES one year, and it could show you incoming calls, and it had an altimeter, had very much the same things as the Fitbit Force, but it just didn't make a splash because maybe it didn't even come out in the U.S. But it just seems like these Fitbits are going to get consumed by smartwatches at some point. It's kind of like PDAs can get really great, but the phone ate it alive. So when is this going to happen?
The big problem with the Fitbit, in my view, is that if you look at the fine print, the level of accuracy is still pretty questionable. And a lot of doctors will tell you it's not that reliable in terms of, it gives people, it motivates them, makes them feel good, but whether or not it's accurately counting, all the calories and all the weight loss and all the steps is still pretty subject to debate there. So that's my only drawback on Fitbit.
Shoot, the whole way we actually like measure calories is under debate these days. I've read a couple articles about that, so no surprise there. Let's move on to Foursquare. They're rolling out a feature for iPhone users that some Android users have had for a little while, and it's kind of pushy.
Yes.
See what I did there?
I do, actually. Now the audience will see, too. So there's a new version of Foursquare for iOS that gives you suggestions as to what to do around where you are on the lock screen. Now, version 6.4 of Foursquare comes with what they call real-time recommendations, which works in the background, and the app will monitor your phone's movements and location. If Foursquare finds relevant information, it's going to send you a push notification. That's what Tom's alluding to. Now, Android had this back in August 29th, actually. This feature is now being sent out to 1,000 people on the iPhone, so it's a slow rollout. Foursquare says it's going to slowly roll out the notifications to the rest of the audience on iPhone, so you get all these little tips right on your lock screen. Eric, do you think users are going to find this invasive or useful?
Well, listen, I'm in the John C. Dvorak camp here, where I just think, Foursquare is just a waste of time. And I don't get it. To me, it's just, Dvorak, he thinks it's an idiot kind of tool, and I'm kind of with him on this one. Facebook has tried to do this with their timeline and kind of putting recommendations like that, personal recommendations, but at the same time, it hasn't really worked that well. So, I'm dubious on this one, but I've been dubious on Foursquare from the start.
Well, I'm one of those Foursquare idiots who uses it quite often,
Me too.
although I have certainly noticed that many of my friends who used to be enthusiastic about the service no longer are. If I look at my feed, there's a few people here at Twitch, some friends of mine in San Francisco and beyond who use it. But really, it seems like the first wave of people who thought Foursquare was super fun to find out where everybody was has really, really fallen off. But Foursquare has turned into something that I love when I'm in an unfamiliar place. I was on a road trip over the weekend, and I stopped in little towns I hadn't been in before. And Foursquare is right up there with Yelp when I look and see who likes like a taqueria nearby type of a thing. I want to get stuff that rises to the top and read some good reviews. So push notifications that work in that way, as long as they veer on the helpful side and less on the invasive side. I like that idea because I actually think that Foursquare still is extremely useful in that way.
Yeah, Dvorak is serious about this too, because he unfollowed me when I posted a Foursquare check-in as a joke one day, and he still doesn't follow me anymore. So he takes it to the extreme. I use Foursquare as a personal history recorder.
That too.
But I don't know if I really want this. I don't really like push notifications, first of all. And when I mentioned this to Eileen, I was like, hey, this has been out for Android. Do you have this? She's like, I don't know. Let me look so I can turn it off in case I do.
This kind of reminds me of like what Google Now is doing, right? It's kind of predictive. So if you are being tracked and you are being followed around and you have this device on you all the time and you're checking in, it has a pretty good idea of what you like to do if you're bothering to rate things, to have a little bit of these tips showing up as opposed to going to the Foursquare app and checking these things out. I think that's way more helpful. Also, it would help them against Yelp, because if I have to run into Yelp and look at their stuff versus Foursquare being on my lock screen, I'm probably going to use that a lot more often because it's right there.
Wasn't Foursquare Radar, I think that's what it was called, wasn't that basically this?
I thought that would check you in if you were nearby somewhere.
No, it wasn't a check-in. It was a hey, this is something that you might like because maybe enough friends of yours have been there, or you've got it on a to-do list, or there's a special. I think it was called Foursquare Radar. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And Foursquare ended up turning off the feature because it was a battery drain, and it was sort of a half-baked feature that a lot of people were like, it's just not working for us. That was over a year ago, maybe even a couple. So this is maybe just a Foursquare saying we've honed down the feature that, and we think it's ready for prime time.
It came out with iOS 5.
Okay, so that was a couple years ago.
You're right. It was called Radar.
Yeah, I actually like Foursquare, and I don't use it publicly except for the occasional joke post, which I'll never do again. But I use it. It is good at conferences when I'm following people that I'm at a conference with to know, like, oh, they headed over there. Okay, I might find them there. And it's actually become good for restaurants, because when you check in at a restaurant, you'll often get a tip that involves a menu recommendation, and I find that kind of helpful as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it part of a Yelp app or part of a Facebook app, and just as as what Sarah said, going to a standalone app just for that, to me, feels extraneous, and so it's a great feature or functionality as part of something bigger.
Let's move on to the randomizer then.
Randomizer.
We had a straw poll today with our live audience, and with a total of, let me open the tab, 65% of the vote. Google engineer submits joke support ticket asking for a monorail. And then Google goes and buys monorail cars.
Yeah.
I guess this was in Sydney. Yeah. They didn't buy the monorail, though.
Just the cars?
They just bought the cars. Yeah, because the Sydney monorail, iconic monorail, was being shut down. So as a joke, one of the guys filed a bug ticket saying Google should buy the Sydney monorail. I guess it took off, became a joke inside the place. And it ended up with them going after the shutdown and saying, come along, bug filer and a few other people. Let's pick out a couple of cars to use to decorate the Sydney Google office.
So what do you do with a little monorail car that can't go anywhere? Do you just sit in it and take photos?
You make it a lounge, of course.
You make it like a sleeping area, or
a little
maybe
car, maybe a bar car kind of thing going.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, this is Google.
Wouldn't it be
talking
nice
about.
to work for a company that has so much money that you could just do stuff like that? Like,
Well,
hey, that was a
the first
joke
thing
ticket,
I
but let's
thought.
buy it.
Isn't this going to encourage more stupid joke tickets?
Let's buy a couple monorails.
Yeah, why not? And then we'll just sit in it in our break room.
We'll have the
Why not?
self-driving
We're
car
Google.
tow it.
What else are we going to do? This is Australia. I mean, it seems kind of ridiculous, but,
That's Google. That's ridiculous.
you know.
They have a helicopter sitting out in front of the YouTube Space LA here, too. So apparently it's a thing.
But
what they
like
do.
the helicopter flies, right?
No, it's an
Oh.
old
No,
helicopter.
just stays there.
Just sitting there
Oh, really?
for decoration. Yeah.
Do people get in it and take pictures?
I have never seen anyone, but they might.
Is YouTube wanting to somehow be synonymous with like air travel? You know what?
Well, it's an old
Whatever.
Hughes hangar.
Okay.
So it's kind of celebrating the history.
I
there.
see.
Instead of
Yeah.
buying a picture for the wall, they bought a helicopter.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we
Instead of
have a
buying a
ticket
picture of the
support
Sydney
system
Mall.
here at Twit. Maybe we ought to just start asking for things.
Yeah, Patrick Delahanty, who's in
See if
chat
they
right
show
now.
up.
He's trying to get a trolley right now. So
Oh, yeah, I'd love a Twit trolley.
Yeah.
We don't even need train
trolley.
tracks.
There we go.
Just put it
Or
right
one
there.
of those, one of those old trolleys that are always running in downtown San Francisco. They probably don't need all of them. Buy one of those.
God, the peanut gallery back there wants a
Yelling
monorail for Twit.
Simpsons
Okay.
fans.
All right, let's check the calendar, shall we?
You know, the month is seeming a bit quiet, but Apple's iPhone-centric fourth quarter earnings are set for October 28th. So get ready, man. We'll find out. Well, maybe we'll find out, you know, what the 5C actually did, but Apple will probably just say the new iPhones sold a lot.
Yeah. We're amazed by the reception and
Yes.
the record-breaking sales
Of
You'll-
our
you'll
new
hear those words.
iPhones' collective numbers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the email.
Incoming message.
It's a message from Tony from Cincinnati who says, in episode 857, you discussed touchscreens with tactile feedback from Disney. What about remotes? Imagine a phone or tablet that could change the feel of the screen based on what device it was controlling. This solves the problem of having to look at the screen to change the channel, volume, etc. I just hope the remote manufacturers could also integrate this in a meaningful way. I'm looking at you, Harmony, says Tony. Maybe one day it'll trickle down to that. I just want to see, maybe once it gets out of the Disney theme parks, actually out of Disney research, then theme parks, maybe it'll trickle down.
It'd be kind of cool. I'd be into that. Touchy-feely remote. Well, that is it for this episode of Tech News Today. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Eric Olander, especially for dealing with the time change from halfway around the globe. But it's like you're right here with us.
Awesome. It's my pleasure.
Let folks know where they can find you if they want to follow you online or keep up with what you're up to.
Yeah, so on Twitter, it's at EOLander, EOLANDER. I also do, outside of the tech world, a weekly podcast on China and Africa. So if you're interested in international affairs, diplomacy, things like that, you can just look up China-Africa Project, and we're on Facebook, Twitter, and everywhere else.
Check it out. Also, check out our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. If you'd like to have an effect on the day's news, you can check out our YouTube channel as well. If you would like to see the shows in the YouTube environment, we're at youtube.com/technewstoday. You can find our website at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and you can call us and leave us a voicemail. Why don't you? Nice 30-second insightful voicemail. You might make it on the show. You might hear your voice right here on this very show. The number is 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll be back tomorrow with Darren Kitchen as our guest. No Len Peralta tomorrow. He has the day off. We'll see you then.